Are you a working mom who sometimes has difficulty balancing it all? If you are, I totally get it. I am in that boat too. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips for working moms or working parents to help you to keep everything more streamlined and help you to keep your sanity. I'm Dr. Patricia Thompson. I'm a corporate psychologist and executive coach. You can learn more about me at Silver Lining Psychology, and stay tuned and make sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos that will help you to be more successful at work. Okay, so let's get to this topic of how to hold it all together as a working mom. And it's actually ironic that I'm filming this video today because this is actually the first day back from winter break when I'm filming this, and I had dropped off my son at school this morning, and they all had to get COVID tested to get allowed into the school. And he's been tested 3 times in the past 10 days, all negative, so I assumed everything was fine. But about 20 minutes after I dropped him off, I get the call, he tested positive, you need to come pick him up. So I did, and he's actually downstairs relaxing as I film this video. But, you know, that story I think is very indicative of the need for flexibility and the willingness to pivot as a working parent. I didn't spend a lot of time in angst thinking, you know, why is this happening? I just heard what was happening, accepted it, didn't necessarily like it, but decided to, you know, figure out what I was going to do and move on. And so that attitude, I think, of being willing to accept, even if you don't like what's happening, and being willing to pivot is essential for being able to deal with the unexpected that is obviously always going to come up when you're in this sort of situation. Okay, so now that we've kind of dealt with that more philosophical idea of acceptance, my first tip is to make sure to ask for help. A mistake that I see a lot of working moms do, and I've done this myself, but I've definitely stopped, is trying to do everything on their own. And as a result, what can happen is that you end up feeling overwhelmed. You might start to feel resentful even, and it just increases your stress level. So to the extent that you can, ask for help. And you can ask for help in a number of ways. If you're partnered, then make sure that your partner is doing his or her share around the home so that you're not left to do everything on your own. Also make sure that you're teaching your children how to clean up. Now, obviously this is going to be age appropriate. My son is 8 now, and so he can do things like make himself toast or waffles for breakfast. That really helps me. I've heard of another individual, and she actually has cereal dispensers. You know, those kind they have in the hotel where you turn the dial so that her kids can help themselves to breakfast. My son has jobs of bringing down the cat bowls in the morning to get washed. He has to put his lunch into his backpack, and of course I double check to make sure that he's done it. But I try to find ways for him to help so that first of all, he's learning that he's supposed to help around the house, but also it helps me to be able to get things done. So that's something else to do. And then to the extent that you can, I also recommend outsourcing help if you can afford it. So for example, having a cleaner come in, you know, once or twice a month to help you with things like that. I get help with my groceries in terms of getting delivery. So that's a form of help that can ease my burden. For a while I was doing something called Click List at Kroger, where you order and then you can pick them up, but you don't have to go through the grocery store. So just kind of ways to streamline and get help can be really essential. But my main message here is don't try to do everything on your own. To the extent that you can get help, be willing to ask for and to receive it. Another time that can be pretty stressful around the home is in the mornings when everybody is trying to get all their stuff together. It can be often very harried and can be a stressful time for parents. And so I suggest, to the extent that you can, getting things ready ahead of time. So the night before, lay out your child's clothes. I do that. I have them also shower the night before so that the morning routine is more streamlined. And I try to do as much as I can to really make things easier. So for example, we take vitamins in the morning. I got one of those pill containers so that they're already laid out, and it saves me, a minute or two in the morning. I have a programmable coffee maker so that my coffee is going in the morning. And basically what I'm trying to do is whatever I can get done ahead of time so that there's not as much of a rush in the morning. That's what I'm trying to do. So think about your morning routine and the things that you can either make more automatic or the things that you can get done the night before when you're not as rushed. And that'll help you to get your morning off to a better start. My next tip is to make sure to take time for yourself. And, just like my earlier tip about making sure not to do everything on your own, this idea about time for yourself is something that I find that a lot of women don't really prioritize. And I'm sure you've heard this before and you're like, yeah, I know I need to make time for self-care, but I don't have time for self-care. Well, the fact of the matter is you need to make some time for self-care, because if you don't, as you've probably realized and experienced, you tend to get more frazzled and then you're no good to anyone. Now, you have to be realistic. You might not have the opportunity to do it, an hour a day, but by at very least giving yourself something to look forward to and something to help you to manage your stress, you're going to be better off for it. So for example, this was pre-COVID. I had a client who decided that every Wednesday was going to be girls' night out for her. And so she and her friends would go to a restaurant and they would just, have an hour and a half chatting and, decompressing in a sense. And that night, if her kids ate McDonald's or if things weren't totally cleaned up around the house, she was okay with that because she had her opportunity to look forward to de-stressing. During COVID, you might find other things to do. Like, for example, for me on Tuesday nights, I do a remote yoga class. And it's an hour where my son knows that he needs to stay upstairs and not interrupt me. And I get to de-stress and relax. If you have really small children around the house and you have a partner or, grandparents or someone who can watch them for a little bit of time, then that might be the moment that you have for your self-care. But, really try to be creative and intentional about putting that time aside for yourself, because it's really important to be able to replenish and to recharge. My next tip is to look for ways to make things more efficient around your house. So for example, I use an Alexa in my home, and I find that it can be really helpful for everything from setting reminders to make sure that, my son takes his vitamins on time, to, reminders for us to make sure that we're getting ready to head out the door and he knows to put on his shoes and socks, and I don't have to tell him because Alexa's telling him. I also have it set up so that I can add things to my to-do list vocally so that it saves me a little bit of time. I can be at the fridge and tell her to add something to my groceries list or to reorder something. And so I use it a lot, and what I found that it does is she acts like a personal assistant, just like she's supposed to, in, putting a little bit more less onus on me to have to remember to do things, and, either reminding me or keeping track of things for me. And so something like that can be really helpful. Also, find ways to declutter, just make your life more efficient in general. I did a video a while back on how to reduce daily hassles, and so I'll put a link to that in the description to the video, and go through that to find more ways to help to make your life more streamlined. And trust me, you will really appreciate it once you put it into practice. The last thing I would say is just to have reasonable expectations and be compassionate with yourself. There are going to be times where you feel overwhelmed. There are going to be times maybe where you drop a ball, and you need to just be accepting that nobody's perfect, that you have a lot on your plate, and that you're doing the best you can. And sometimes if you have too much going on, then it's perfectly reasonable to give yourself a break and to maybe even model that for your children, that you don't need to be hustling all the time, but you can listen to yourself and your body and take a mental health break when you needed it. So for example, yesterday, it was our last full day off from winter break, like I said, and I was thinking about taking my son to martial arts, and I just didn't feel like doing it, and he kind of didn't feel like doing it either, and I could have just pushed through and gone because I paid the money for him to do martial arts, and that was our, routine. But I decided I was going to give both of us a break, and I said, you know what? We are not going today. And, the ability to be able to say no and to be okay with it is a really important thing. And as it turns out, he was positive for COVID, so it's really good that we didn't go. But, being able to say no and being compassionate with yourself and checking in and knowing when you need a break is really important and something that I highly recommend. Sometimes pushing through is the right thing to do, but a lot of times, not pushing through and giving yourself a nap is the appropriate response. Okay, so I hope that some of those tips helped you. Please put them into practice. And if you have any favorite tips that you like to help you hold it all together as a working mom, I would love to see them. So put them in the comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.